Hey there guys, it's Celine. It's Monday again, the 13th of July 2021, and I'm shuffling my Voodoo playing cards that I have been using for my solitaire game. I actually ordered a new deck. This is the Voodoo Solitaire that I use. It's by Bicycle. I enjoy this a lot. I've been using the hell out of it recently. Actually, not all winter. When stress levels get too high, I don't play solitaire anymore. But if I manage it to, it really helps actually to organize my brain. I get this like nice little tidy frame, mental frame of things that that I have to look at, in my solitaire. And so that helps me quite a bit. I've ordered 2 new ones along the same lines. They're dark decks as well, and they have a theme. It's a solar spot, sunspot theme, and the other one is an asteroid theme. They're fairly alike. They're like this, dark backgrounds, and the asteroid one certainly has red as well. I'm not sure about the sunspot one. It looks on the photos on the internet as if they were all one color. So no black and white, or red and white, red and black, distinction. So that's going to be interesting to try and use that for solitaire, where I, in my game that I use, go, red and black alternate like that, which is how I learned from my husband. We'll see. We'll report in. When I get them, I will show them to you. So I've also been using my solitaire on and off when I use it. It's struck me over and over again how the cards that come out, this is the box for the Voodoo playing cards, like so. I love them. They're awesome. I just wanted an alternative. That's why I bought new cards. I wanted an alternative to play somewhere in a hotel or on a camping place or somewhere public outside where people wouldn't necessarily enjoy the skulls and all this type of stuff. So I wanted something else to bring along. What was I going to say? Divinatory approach somehow from my solitaire. What I do is I put down 8 cards blind, so face down. The one on the left is open, and so down as many rows as you get, 8 rows obviously, with the leftmost card open each time, and the other ones are face down. And so you go down from the value of each card, adding cards in the opposite color. So you can put clubs and spades on top of hearts and diamonds, or vice versa, easily enough. And somehow I find this to be endlessly entertaining. I can show you my husband's deck. He's got the koi carp version of the same, and what I was noticing, what he also said himself, why he didn't really necessarily want a different deck. He enjoys having white cards with the motif is very much like a koi carp skin, like that. So white cards with really obviously visible from a distance, also from the other side of the table. He can look at my game and even help me, if I'm stuck or if I don't see what I'm doing. Here's a jack card, like so. I personally, I see they're all very badly bent, his cards, so it wouldn't be bad for him to have an extra, just, and it's not like it's that expensive, so yeah. Because money. Money is always money. Money is on the mind. I don't really feel like I don't have the money to buy as many card playing decks as I want, or any kind of, It's just that I try to be sensible about things as much as possible. Okay? So I didn't really come out to talk to you about the cards, except that it has been a bit on my mind. I've been tired, I suppose, with a long client run and a crystal haul. that I will have to film separately for you guys, because I got a few small, cute, interesting, good things that I will show separately, because the vibe from these crystals, it was an adventure. And I had to also, when I was waiting in line to pay for the stones, I held my husband's stone in my one hand and the set that I had collected for myself in my other hand, and the vibrations were very disparate, you know, completely incongruous with each other. So it gave me a splitting headache that actually lasted until an hour ago or so. It was a bit of a challenge working with that stuff, and it just goes to show there's crystals for everybody, for every kind of need, for every imaginable kind of, just like there's plants, you know, for every kind of imaginable human situation. There's always something you just have to try and connect with somehow. The other thing, the main thing that I wanted to come out and talk to you about at this point is that I have been doing graveyard dirt things again. So you may have seen, I think I will upload this story today on Tuesday, because one a day is enough, I feel, from me. And I uploaded my little graveyard, pocket size graveyard, you know, this morning. And it was, it's such a really cute little place. And it's so rare to find places like that in the Netherlands. So I felt it was really priceless to film there for just 2 minutes, to just do a little bit of a peek in there. And if you've seen my video, you can see that there's like patches of what's that called? Like a dike, a big earthenware ramp going like that in the distance, with grass, just grass, and maybe a tree here or there, and some vague, faint traffic noises in the distance. The thing is, on top of the dike, there's a highway passing, not very busy, going off in the distance towards a roundabout with a bridge and another roundabout to the actual big highway that's near to this town. It's all like in a kilometer or two scope, radius of distance. And so you have this dike that you see with the road on top. There's like a huge massive highway going a mile or so to the left in the distance. There's another roundabout that you don't see right behind the trees to the right of the screen, with several roads coming off it and going into, one of them going into the village, like so, behind you. So there's like this elbow or armpit in between all the highways where there's just a bushy bundle of trees and a couple of leftover little bits and a little, I suppose it's really a little old, another sea dike to keep the seawater out, I think. Except it's nearly derelict. It's got about, I don't know, 10 or 20 or so houses, very old often. A lot of them are, I don't know, end of the 19th century, little farmers' cottages, teeny tiny, like minuscule little houses, and some trees and some bushes. And I noticed in driving past, my husband has a client in the town there that he had to go to, so I dropped him off and I went to visit this little graveyard again for the second time. I'd been there once before in the deep of winter, not last year, but the year before, I think. So I knew it was there. And I noticed now in passing that along this teeny tiny bit of a road along the top of the dike that you just follow to get to this little nook here, there's actually like miniature road going down and 3 more houses down there, and it goes back up again to the dike, and then you can just sort of turn around again somehow. If your car is bigger than the very average, you know, American cars, don't even think about it because you can't squeeze yourself through there. You'd have to park in town and walk, okay? Promise. Yo. So I thought this was just so cute to film. There's only 20 graves. I've also tried to find more information about this place on the internet, and I found a couple of bits and bobs of text that that reference this place, but nothing very extensive as to why it's so apart, so separate, because there is a big, huge church in the middle of town. It's like a village, really. A huge church with a huge churchyard right around it, graveyard right around it. And that's where everybody's buried nowadays, or where the ashes are kept or whatever. So I've noticed in my own graveyard dirt type of practice recently, there have been a couple of things that have made this whole it's weird to say, it's really weird to say, I suppose, but it's kind of become more alive to me, this whole concept. It's done a lot for me. Graveyard dirt, working with graveyard dirt in magical terms, has done a lot for me. And I'm sort of slowly investigating my options and, looking around, shopping, watching what happens, watching videos, experimenting and so on and so forth. And it's meant more to me. It's done more for me, and it's meant more to me than I was expecting by quite a stretch. So I suppose, is there anything more I need to say about this small graveyard? Oh yes, the thing I noticed for myself when I am considering what I'm considering to go and do, I will show you my products and things that I've been making with graveyard dirt in a bit. I've got a couple of things, not like 100, but enough, I think, to show you. I noticed that it's very important, if you go collect graveyard dirt for magical purposes, to really slow down, okay? This is my take on things. Other people do things differently. I'm not talking about that. This is just my take and my experience. If you really slow down and let yourself feel what the place feels like, okay? Let yourself open up, come into contact, be receptive to what's going on whatever kind of a level, material or otherwise, that connects to you. This is quite an enriching experience. That's what I want. That's why I think it's valuable to talk about this, okay? So that's what I've noticed. I have collected graveyard dirt twice now. One time in my own big graveyard that is still in use, but very quiet and quite large, and it has a lot of open spaces in my town, about 10 minutes walk away from my house. And the other time right here in this little village in the West Country in Zeeland, close to the sea. So that's 2 times. I am planning to collect graveyard dirt in other locations. So far, that's the only type of dirt that I have worked with. There's lots of others. There's lots of other variants and variations and possibilities in this sense. I'm interested also at some point in working with crossroads dirt, but I don't feel comfortable so far gathering any of that around here. It's just too dirty for my taste, and there's too much traffic, too many people. The vibration just doesn't feel right. There's places, crossroads, physical crossroads of roads around here that I feel are relatively appealing in terms of what the vibe is at the place, but never to the extent that I would feel comfortable connecting, because somehow for me there is a real connection taking place. So it's very, very interesting and very magical and very not frightening at all. None of it so far for me has to do in any way with ghosts or presences from the afterlife. I wouldn't necessarily mind that much if that were the case. What I did notice, what I still haven't said, even though I was trying to, is that I don't collect graveyard dirt, apparently, or I don't feel comfortable doing that in places that I actually have a physical genetic connection to. And there may be a couple of reasons for that, and I'm not sure. So we will see how this develops. I will make more videos in the future, you know, about this subject. It's something that's around to stay, definitely, for me in my life. So, what else can I add to this? I gather a bit of graveyard dirt. I didn't have any pots and pans or spook scoops or anything with me at the time because I hadn't thought beforehand that I was going to do this really. Although it was in my mind somehow. I'd thought of the place before, but I hadn't decided anything until I was actually right there. So I just took out my pocket knife, decided on a spot, a likely spot for me to collect my dirt, and just scraped a bit loose with my pocket knife, put that in with my hands in a handkerchief, just a Kleenex, folded that up tightly and stuck it into my backpack in a separate compartment like so, cleaned my knife off. It's fine, you know. I tend to apparently enjoy collecting graveyard dirt from the foot of trees, not from directly from graves ever, because that freaks me out somehow, and it doesn't seem to be the right thing to do for me. So there's all these kinds of adjustments going on for me, okay? So that's how I go about this stuff. I'm just sharing, you know, how I do things. You do you, you do whatever. Like Lady Gravedancer always says, you do you, okay? She's got great intel on YouTube on graveyard dirt and uses and workings and all that type of stuff. So I have, what else can I add to this? I have planned, yes, to collect graveyard dirt in other locations. Certainly I will try to collect some in the south of France when I get there in my holiday. Hopefully that still goes, you know, as planned. I am making some mixtures. I forgot to bring out my graveyard dirt oil. I have shown it. I can also just as well put the link to that video in the description to this one, so you can have a look at that if all this is new for you. I have used the graveyard dirt oil, not much actually, only in one other product of mine that I'm going to show you in a bit. And I'm actually curious to see what develops from all that, in the sense that I haven't really felt called to use the graveyard dirt oil itself. It's actually even sitting in my fridge now because I wanted it to keep properly and to be safe, you know, and it's fine in there. And I suppose I could use it really well to, I'm thinking now that it would be nice to have a small flask of some type of anointing oil, a magical oil, that you would add some of the graveyard dirt oil in there and dilute it with some other type of hand oil or something, you know, like skin oil, something that doesn't have too much of a fragrance, and you can add your own fragrance to that. And you just have a little tiny flask of that stuff, and then you could just dab little teeny tiny amounts of that. I suddenly had this image of wiping just a teeny tiny bit of that on my journal, for example. Who knows? It sounds like a good idea to me. That would be a way of making my journal practice, which is huge to me. It's like the half of my craft personally is my personal journal with all my travails and all my stories and all my events and all my adventures. And some of my card spreads and stuff is all in there. And it would be kind of nice. I think it would be kind of nice to do this. So I'll have a think about this. Actually, so you see how nice it is for me to have you to talk to? I mean, awesome, because I get ideas. So yeah, wow. So that's one way I would use Graveyard Dirt oil. I want to share my product, okay? I have two other things that I have made so far. This is an ink, actually, or paint that contains Graveyard Dirt. And nearly always I put some witch's powder in there as well, which is brick powdered in the mortar with some charcoal and some salt and some black pepper, basically, and a couple of other things as per your own preference. I have put in some mugwort, some sage, and some resins. So ground up resins that I collected. That went into the witch's powder. This is, let me see whether I can actually show you what this looks like. It's really dark black stuff, and it has little glitters in it. It is basically a paint with gum arabic and boiled water, so like loopy little bits of sticky substance like that you can paint with really well. I made it really black with charcoal from a fireplace, and it has mother of pearl powder, which is also a pigment, okay, from a shop in it as well. So Graveyard Dirt, charcoal powder, witch's powder, mother of pearl powder. Those are the ingredients for my paint, with boiled water and gum arabic. You add the gum arabic, which is also a powder you can get in the shop, and then you add a bit of boiled water just to be disinfecting as much as possible, because this kind of stuff tends to get smelly eventually anyway. It's okay. It just smells of stuff because it's stuff, okay? It doesn't smell bad and doesn't really get moldy. It doesn't get moldy if you use boiled water, okay? This I have used to paint with a couple of times already. It is, I would say, the Graveyard Dirt effect that I will come back to as I sit here and talk to you is noticeable in this, even though I hadn't really thought of that at the time. I've had this for about a month or so, and I've used it to paint or illustrate bits of poetry with, just with stripes and lines, and just going over it with my fingers and like that. You get a really nice, very gritty kind of effect. I suppose if you want charcoal powder to be really paint grade fine, you have to buy it in the shop as well, just like the other things. And I was just grinding away in my mortar, and so it gets really gritty, but it's kind of satisfying to work with somehow, and it has a special vibe. And I think the other thing that has the special vibe is this as well. I made candles for myself. It was also first time around. They're perfumed candles. They don't have extraordinary amount of smell. I made candles in pots like so as well. This has a bit more of a candle smell. Paraffin with stearin. I hope that's the right word for it. You have to, there's a whole way of making candles. You just have to go and look that up for yourself. With also charcoal for the color. Really, you can see that this is really quite dark, and it looks really gloopy and witchy and scary on the inside. And this is actually a candle that I made in a toilet roll, which is how I made a couple of those. And as you can see probably down there at the bottom is where most of the sandy and dirty bits have sunk to the bottom. And I don't think there's actually any witch's powder, so brick powder plus, things in here. It's just Graveyard Dirt and charcoal in about a ratio of, 1:5 or 6, something like that. So the proportion of Graveyard Dirt in all the formulas that I'm using is always fairly small. I'm always surrounding it with all sorts of other things, mostly the same things. So charcoal is a good one. I was really pleased and surprised at how lovely this color got from the completely neutral white pasty type of paraffin color with my dirt mixed in and my charcoal, and patchouli powder went in these as well, because I nicked that off Lady Gravedance's graveyard dirt oil recipe that she shared. And she has on her shop, she sells this type of candle as well. And I wasn't comfortable ordering more stuff from the States, so I went ahead and made my own, because I wanted to find out about making my own candles anyway. And so I made some of those little ones. I since found a place where I could actually buy a lot of wick, a length of wick, you know, and I'm saving the little tins of these and reusing them all the time, as well as the little wick foot that are like this, you know, they sit at the bottom of your little tin container here with your wick sticking out like that, and you can make those yourself. You can open these up again. There's a hole in the middle of this holder and like a little tube sticking out, and you can open those out again, take out the old bits of wick or the old bits of candle wax that are still in there, and stick in a new piece of wick of the length that you want, and pinch them shut again, and it will just all, you can repurpose the whole stuff a number of times, I'm quite sure. So that's all been great fun. And of course, if you have burnt them, in the end it looks like this. Down the bottom there's a lot of grit and dirt, and you just have to be comfortable with all the messy, gritty bits and pieces. I personally thought this was really adorable, and this is a piece of the actual toilet roll that has the paraffin on the sides. You can just tear those off of the candles once they're cooled and set, you know. And it has the bits of gritty charcoal bits on the side, which I will probably now stick in the fireplace because it's been lying around long enough. So those were, this is my story so far with Graveyard Dirt, all from the same place. I harvested that stuff, I think it's by now 6 weeks or so ago that I went ahead and finally got myself around to harvesting my Graveyard Dirt for the first time. And it went really well, and I got all these interesting types of product to work with, where I haven't shared yet my most interesting one. And it's coming right now after I've had a bit more tea, okay? So, obviously, well, somehow there's some kind of an ancestor connection to this whole thing. And it should, for me, it should not be too direct and too personal. That is my personal, I've been saying this a couple times already. It's just been how my life has been, okay? I am somehow not allowed to go to my mother's grave, collect some dirt from there, and do the same things with. A part of me would be able to accept this by now. I wouldn't have been able or comfortable to accept this before I started this. So maybe this is only preparatory preparation for similar types of activity. I have been planning to do something similar where I would collect some dirt at a burial mound that would still be in the neighborhood somewhere. Not here, not around here. There aren't any burial mounds left, so out of prehistoric times, right? So talk about being remote and in the distance. I have found a location which would be really difficult to get to by public transport, so it will have to be done with my husband, and I will film there probably also when we get to it, which may yet be another 6 months, I don't know. There's a place with where there's quite a number of burial mounds still there, still visible. Also, what they tend to do with burial mounds out of the Bronze Age is what you're talking about, like a period of time between 2000 and 500 BC is what you're talking about when it's about burial mounds, okay? So it's later than stone circles and that type of stuff, but it's still very old and pre-Roman and pre-Christian. So I was interested to get me some dirt from there and do the same types of things, not the candles and the ink, but the other thing that I'm going to show you, in a bit. It's so interesting. I'm so glad that I'm finally rested enough to bring this stuff to you because it's so interesting. Burial mounds in the south of France. There is a couple of places that I want to visit, see what happens. Maybe possible also to gather some dirt from Crossroads over there, where maybe it's slightly less this feeling of like the dirt that you collect would consist mainly of icky and yucky bits, motor oil from cars and rubber from tires and dog stuff, dog poo. Yeah, that's what I feel like. And that's why I enjoy my graveyard dirt so much, because graveyards tend to be still very much sacred spaces. People very, very rarely come into graveyards around here anyway, or in this country so far that I've been able to notice, with less than respectful intentions. I am not talking about the middle of Amsterdam and or places that are like that. There is, however, a massive, huge cemetery of Jewish people still in the east part of Amsterdam that I have ancestors lying there. That would be the closest to a direct genetic connection for me. And by now I have another Jewish cemetery, which is like 10, 20 kilometers east of the first location, okay, where I actually have been and visited, where I have found a grave of an ancestor of mine, and that has been a total cross no. You're not going to collect dirt there. The first one in Amsterdam, in the east part of town, feels like a possibility by now. So we will see. We will see what happens from here, okay? Certainly the south of France is an option. The burial mound is an option. There's a couple of other bits and places in the south of France that have like sacred space energy, like a Roman, what you would call that? A set of Roman remains in the Rhone Valley, in the triangle that ends at Marseille in the south of France. To the north of that, there's actually Roman archaeological remains where there's a well and several temple buildings and bits and things like that have been really, really well kept. And then we intend to visit that place. So I was thinking of that location also because it was already venerated and worshipped at way before the Romans came. So that may be an interesting place to have a look at. Okay, so all this, my most interesting product, if you like, from this whole graveyard dirt exercise has been this. So this is a similar kind of a little tube that I always put my dried mushrooms in with. In this case, you can see a yellowy substance. There's bits of mushroom. This is actually a red bolete flask that I still have to get connect with and find out whether there's a difference in vibration between this type of bolete and the other boletes. As I have noticed that is a big difference between red amanitas and pantherina amanitas in this type of a flask. To be, held in the hand like so, and slowly you can sort of sense a difference there. Very interesting. This is how I do this, okay? This is how I've learned to work with these types of energies. So this one is the first one that I made. I have made 3 of the same type that contains the graveyard dirt from the big church over there that I harvested the first time around. It's a Catholic graveyard and still very much in use. I have carried this one or another one of the 3 around with me quite a lot, especially when I needed energy, when I needed to feel in here, strengthened, needed to feel courage, needed to feel like I could do this, you know. Especially I will take this with me, preferably when I go into town or with husband on a client run, or to see relatives or people where it's energetic, vibrational, you know, very messy and lots of things going on, where I can actually benefit from having something that supports me. You might use crystals, you might use a jasper or an obsidian or a moonstone or a rose quartz, for all I care. It's the same principle, you know. The principle is the vibration of the thing. So I had this, I'd gotten used to this. I've done, I think it's a month or so ago that I made this, or maybe more, 5 or 6 weeks or so. This one is most noticeable that it has the charcoal bits in there, because this contains, I say 2/3, a bit more than 2/3 of a mixture of witch's powder, so brick powder, right, and charcoal and patchouli powder, so the graveyard dirt oil mixture with graveyard dirt in it, okay, and then a couple of essential oils that are mixed for this purposefully. So what I wanted, and I've only done this yesterday, so this is a convoluted kind of a story. I wanted to make the same formula with the graveyard dirt from the other graveyard, the one in the West Country, right? So I've finally done that. Only in this case, I didn't want to go to the lengths of making a graveyard dirt oil first, because it's more pots and things, and I didn't want to have an endless plethora of pots, you know. I just wanted to be as streamlined as possible. If it's all possible, I want it to be streamlined. So what I've done this morning, I've actually made a new version of the old one, which contains not the graveyard dirt oil, but the components of the graveyard dirt oil without the oil. Are you still with me? That's in here. And this is the same composition, so a dry composition without the coconut oil, with the same essential oils, and the base that is around this, which is this base, you know, this yellow stuff, which is also coconut oil and beeswax together, amalgamated, melted together. So it becomes kind of a pasty, bit sticky, greasy substance, like so. Easier to work with than pure beeswax, and easier to melt, and so on, you know, that's why. So the big challenge is to figure out, and I will have to do this later and report back to you. Maybe I will just stick a comment in the comment section down here once I've done this, whether I can actually feel a difference. I tell myself now that I can feel a difference. The formulas are the same. The only thing that's different is the graveyard dirt that's in it. And there's 2 big differences as to graveyard dirt in these, okay? The one is the soil, where it was taken, where it was harvested, where this is really sandy soil around here, and this is sea clay soil. I should go like this. This is the traditional one, and this is the newest one, okay? The soil is different, so the sea clay is a really different substance from the sandy kind of, you know, higher, slightly higher elevation. It isn't like a huge elevation, but the soil is really different up here. The other difference between the two is that in terms of graveyard, this is a Catholic graveyard that it comes from, and this is a Protestant one. And of course, this one is still in use. This one has not been in use at all. Look at the gloop it made. I let it cool and set, lying on its base like that. So I would get you could get to see the brick particles in there on the one hand, and I got the big gloop coming out like that. I thought that was quite fun. The place is still treated with great respect, and it's still very obviously a graveyard. Only it doesn't get much traffic, and it doesn't get much. There's no addition to it, whereas this graveyard is actually very much still in use. So I will have to, sit with these, feel what happens, see what happens what the difference between the oldest one that I made first with graveyard dirt oil in compared to this one. There's probably not going to be much of a difference between these. Also, I don't really measure my components on like the gold scales so as to be absolutely certain to the gram of what it is. I just make sure that all the components are in there. What I've noticed really strongly with these, carrying these with me, and over the past month and a bit, has been that I have found incredible support for myself, for being compassionate towards other people. Like my capacity to be compassionate has increased tenfold from this. It is like graveyard dirt has made that possible for me. It has made it tangible, literally. The dirt has made it possible. So that's why this is such a big deal to me. That's why I'm making this endless long video about this whole, this whole subject, going into all the details. And it's not possible, I think, at this point to really describe too much about this. Of course, there's always a sense of warmth. It will get warmer in your hands as you sit with them, at least if your hands are warm, which I hope they are, And yeah, what I tend to also do is shuffle them around in my hands. I have to carry them with me. I have to, mess around with them for a couple of days, and then I will have some type of a conclusion. Already, this one does feel quite a bit different. It feels cooler, less accessible, more stern, more demanding, which fits in with the image I have of Protestant Christian beliefs compared to these. These are more accessible, easier to work with. This is a lot cooler, and you have to work a lot harder to connect to it. That actually makes sense. Already, a tiny snippet of energetic something. You have to work harder for this one. This is not no work. This is just shared experiences, compassion, understanding where everybody comes from and where everybody goes. This is less obvious, this is a lot more work to get to. So more on that when I have it, okay? Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you find this as cool as I do. I know this is pretty cool stuff myself. And also I've been harvesting mugwort. I've got tons of mugwort. Sorry for the armpit. It doesn't look that bad, does it? I've got about a dozen big ass stalks, like this big, 1.5 meters of mugwort, so that should last me. Harvested around this famous new moon in Cancer, so I'm really pleased with that. and I have leftover old dried mugwort from the bottom of the bag. I use a huge big cotton, like this big, which you can't see, you know, this big of a cotton bag that all the sticks go in, because you don't want those drying leaves to all fall off and, you know, go to waste on the floor anyway, which is what tends to happen, or what tended to happen. So everything is in the bag and it just stays in there, and I shuffle them around now and again to make sure it all dries evenly. A cotton bag, not too very thin fabric. So yeah. So in terms of witchy stuff and witchy check-in, I think that's it for now. I'm really excited with my whole Graveyard Dirt enterprise. It's very special to me. It really means a lot to me in a way that crystals really often didn't, which is amazing to me, because I love crystals. I've always been nuts about crystals, like these guys, which, come to think of it, look a lot like there's Graveyard Dirt in them, right? It's not, it's chlorite quartz Lemurians or something like that. Awesome stuff. More when next we meet. Okay, thank you so much for being here, you guys. I love you to pieces. Okay, see you next time. Okay, bye bye.